The following program is a Town of Colonie television production of the William K. Sanford Town Library.
Well, welcome to Getting to Know You. My name is Joe Nash. Today, as you can see on our table here, it's time for our annual visit with the folks from the Adirondack Folk School. We have Scott Hayden, the executive director, and we have one of their instructors, Barbara Boughton, who teaches basket weaving, basket making. She also does fiber arts, and we're going to talk about the school. It's up in Lake Luzerne. What they do is they're dedicated to teaching the arts, crafts, and cultural heritage of the Adirondack region, and they have classes or courses in basketry, rustic furniture, jewelry, canoe making, ceramics, chair and cane weaving, Adirondack chairs. The list is very long here. And they also, if you're up there at night, they also have, they celebrate the Adirondack history with, they have storytellers, musicians, and they sit around the fire, and they have a powwow. You use the word powwow, is that what you said?
Oh, that I attended a powwow.
Yes, a powwow. So they have powwows. Yeah. So they a lot going on. So Scott, welcome back.
It's great to be back.
So this is your third year?
Yeah, second time. Yes,
so before we talked about your specific classes, how did 2017 go? I mean, I'm sorry, you're all year round, but how did this year go?
This year's been fantastic. A lot. When I was here earlier, more people are finding the school. It's going really well. We have almost 200 more students enrolled this year than last year, and almost twice the number of sold-out classes. So.
And I should tell people you have instructors from all over, not just the country, all over the world.
Right.
Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. So tell me about what was popular this year. I don't want to bring up the blacksmithing. We always talk about blacksmithing, but was that still number one?
That still is number one. It's very popular thanks to shows like Forge and Fire. We're fortunate enough to have a couple of the first winners of that show as our instructors, Matt Parkinson and Mace Vitale. But a lot of our other blacksmith courses were very popular right from the get-go in April all the way through to the fall.
Okay. Now, the other thing is, I should say, some classes are a couple hours long, some are half a day, some are a day, some take, with the canoe classes, 2 weeks?
2 weeks.
2 weeks, although I did see on your website, there's a canoe you can do in one day, is that right? The Wee Canoe or something?
No.
Okay.
The Wee Lassie. It's called the Wee Lassie.
How long is that class?
That's to the 2-week class.
That's also okay.
Yeah.
So there's a wide range. So now, why don't we find out what it's like from one of your teachers here, Barbara Boughton. How did you end up at the school? You're from Sand Lake, New York. You teach fiber arts and basket weaving, basket making. And I hear you're an apprentice blacksmith, but how did you end up? Tell me how you ended up there in some of your arts, what you do.
I wound up at the folk school a few years ago. I was participating in a juried arts and crafts show, selling my baskets at Larac, when I was talking to some folks about blacksmithing and weaving, and they introduced me to the Adirondack Folk School. So it was one of my customers handed me a catalog, and so I took a ride right up. My first introduction was actually taking a blacksmithing class at the school, and that weekend there happened to be a basketry class being taught as well. I had some of my work in the car and met some folks, and we chatted.
Now, had you taught before? Basket?
Yes.
Oh, okay,
I have taught before. I used to mostly teach privately and in people's homes, which I still do, but now I spend more of my time teaching through the folk school, either at the school or at some of the events that last weekend I taught 10 women at a Winnebago rally in Lake George through the school. I have taught, so I do a number of road trips on behalf of the school as well.
So what's your impression of the school since you saw the catalog and you went up there?
My goodness, I couldn't believe that we had this. I had this gem in my backyard that I hadn't even known about for a couple of years, because this is exactly what I was looking for as someone who's interested in history and traditional arts. I studied art in college, but when I moved back into this area, I moved into my great-great-grandparents' home, and so I think I was always born an old soul. He was a blacksmith, so I had a great interest in learning to smith myself. That was my first introduction to the school.
Okay.
And then seeing the caliber of the blacksmithing instructors, I kept going back. And then I do love to teach, and obviously I love to talk. So I really enjoyed my time
So
instructing at the school.
Besides, you do fiber arts?
Well, I'm a lifelong learner. So
Okay.
one of the things that basketry is considered a fiber art,
Okay.
but certainly not the only one.
Okay.
There's the textile weaving on a loom, and that is my next mission, is
Okay.
to, as a student, take advantage of all the new classes, weaving classes that the school will be offering now that we have additional weaving space
Okay.
dedicated. Yeah.
And now, Scott, are Barbara's classes popular?
Very popular. The cool part about my job, I get to read all the reviews of all the classes, and her.
Oh, do you mean the students?
after
The
the other-
students fill out evaluations. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, and they all come back very, very satisfactory, and they had a great time. So that's the great thing about the school, is that everybody who is there really wants to be at the school. Between the instructors and the students, like they see it like Barbara is I think very typical of somebody who's come to our school. They see the catalog, or they see an item like this basket, like, wow, I can make that, and then they find out. There's about a half a dozen other people who are just as excited as they are to make that basket, and the instructor is very happy to pass along their knowledge and their passion for the item. And not only that, but you also get the story behind the story, and how and why it was made and why it's designed a particular way, which is the folk aspect of our school. You get all that deep background and true understanding of it. So everybody's really excited to be there, and I think it really sets up a great situation.
Well, Barbara, you mentioned history. In the other years, I've talked to people that Scott brought down. It seems like half the time we're learning about crafts, but we learn a lot about history. Is that what you find?
Oh, exactly. When I'm designing a class, right now we're in the process of building the catalog for 2018,
Yep.
and so I've actually emailed students saying, do you have ideas? What are the next steps you want to take? And so we'll incorporate that idea, the students' ideas, as well as I love to teach history, and so part of the class is designed around, with students' input, around what new basketry techniques would you like to learn this year. But in addition, let me offer you another insight into our region and why and how it's important. For instance, this is a shaker style basket. It's a shaker cat head basket. I have a few apples in it. So. But the reason it's called a cat head is because when you turn it upside down, it looks like the ears of a cat.
Yeah.
Now, that's stylistically shaker because they made all things beautiful, but typically their beauty was functionally important as well. The reason I brought the apples, the reason there are 4 feet on a round basket, if you put all of your harvested apples or potatoes in a basket, it would push down, all the weight would accumulate in the center of the basket first. The shaker's designed 4 feet on a round basket such that when you harvest your apples and potatoes, the produce will first fill the circumference of the basket and the center last. And so that's what the 4 feet are for.
Well, you must be teaching math too, it sounds like.
Oh, I totally do. I am a total math geek, and you have to be a weaver.
Yeah.
In fact, one of the classes that I'll be writing up right now for the folk school, based on student input, is I'll be teaching how to weave this type of basket, but using the Fibonacci number sequence.
And then you can do this, using the what?
Fibonacci number
I
sequence.
won't even ask what that is. So you can do this in one day?
Yes, that is a one-day class.
Now, this is one of yours, right?
Yes.
I'll hold this one up.
That one we call the mountain gathering basket.
Mountain gathering, and it has a different bottom. You just explained. Why don't you talk about this one? This is very nice.
Oh, this is a very popular basket. It's one of, actually, it's my personal favorite basket to keep in my own house.
Oh, okay.
But it's also a very popular basket at the school. It's woven on an oak base, and when the student starts with the oak base, there is a groove in this base called a kerf, K-E-R-F, and into that base are inserted the 28 spokes.
Okay.
So it looks like a gigantic sunray.
Well, I think you didn't bring it here, but you had one that was half made. It looked like a...
Yes, I taught this class a couple weeks ago, and so I weave along with the students to demonstrate first, and so I brought along what would be the very beginning of this basket.
Right.
But once the spokes are woven up, this particular technique, we use a continuous weave and a chase weave, so we're weaving with 2 weavers at the same time. and the sides weave up very quickly, and we finish it with a hand-carved oak handle and a round rim, and it's just a beautiful basket.
So tell me about some of your students. Are they all ages, all
Generally, yes,
men,
they are
women, everybody?
men and women. What's really fun, sometimes I've had husbands and wives in
Yeah.
the same class. More frequently than that, though, the husband will be taking a blacksmithing or a wood turning class,
Yes, of course.
and I'll have the wife in the basketry class. So that happens a lot, and that's fun. I also have many occasions where students have come to meet for a girls' weekend or a sisters get-together. One woman came from Montreal, another came up from New York City. They had spent the weekend taking classes at the school and had an amazing time.
So do they ever say why they wanted to? I mean, why do you think this stuff is sort of coming back, or why is it so popular, you think?
I think I see a lot of people who may not have confidence in their skills, but they have the desire to maybe see what they can do.
Yeah.
And because mostly I teach first-time weavers. I do have a number of students who have taken a number of my classes, and I love to see the repeats. But most of my students are first-time weavers. This is a beginning basket, and they're absolutely amazed with what they accomplish during the day. So I'll set this on the table, and they'll say, "Well, when are you going to bring out the glue?" And I'm like, "Oh, there's no glue involved." Yeah, and I said, "I promise you, I will give you your money back at the end of the day if you don't do this, and if you aren't happy with what you've," and inevitably they all walk away like, "I can't believe I did that." And for me as an instructor, that is enormously satisfying. Way more satisfying than, selling a basket at an art show.
Now, are these yours too?
That is another one of my baskets. That's
This is a whole different style.
that is a whole different
Round,
style.
It's got.
Leather handles. It's a Bushel basket style.
Why don't you talk about that one?
And this is another popular one. This is also first-time weavers will weave this basket. This is similar to the Shakers. The other farmers used a double-bottom basket. This is a double-bottomed twined base. So we learn the technique of twining, which is very important in basketry. We add 2 layers for the base. The most fun part at the end of the day is when the basket is all woven up the sides, and then we wet the bottom again, and the lady or the gentleman push in to kick up the bottom of the base. And what that does is, similar to the Shakers, it allows your produce to first fill the outside of the basket. So again, this is a typical American farm style
And then
basket.
What is that material?
This material is woven with reed or rattan.
Okay.
It's historically, these baskets would have been woven with oak or white or black ash or even maple, but the cost of hand-pounded materials would be absolutely just prohibitive to weave with or to teach with. And so even historically, many baskets are woven with rattan. In fact, this is the inside of the vine. The outside of the vine is that crusty material that is used for chair caning. So it's the same material. It's a very sustainable material, renewable, grows 10 to 15 inches a day in Southeast Asia. So today, most of this is processed or grown in Vietnam, processed into different widths in Asia, and is available in basket weaving supply companies, all over.
So how many classes do you teach?
I teach once a month, or generally, since I do live a little distance away, I don't generally teach in December or January, but I hope I'm not jumping the gun. I think the school is going to be partnering also with the shirt factory.
Oh, well, yes,
Yep.
Scott.
Yep.
Yeah, in
Now,
Glens Falls.
Scott can do his executive director duties. And
Yeah.
Now, what is this?
Sure. The Shirt Factory Galleries in Glens Falls is we have afforded us a beautiful working space in their annex in Glens Falls. So we'll be allowing us to provide more classes and more opportunities for students.
So you're going to be using their space?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I thought you were going to be making shirts or something.
No, but that's a different class.
So it's like an auxiliary campus or something?
It is. It's
all right.
about a 1,200 square foot teaching space. That's where we teach our canoe making and our chairs. So the Wee Lassie canoe, the Sagamore chair, and the Westport Adirondack chair.
Now, are those very popular ones?
Very popular, yes. Those are very intensive woodworking classes. Again, that's the great thing about the school. It's designed for a novice or beginner, where we provide all the materials and all the tools that you'll need. and the instructors have the years of know-how and knowledge and passion for passing it along, as you can see with Barbara here.
So like if 4 people were taking the canoe class,
Yeah.
they would be building 4 at once?
Or
Or whatever, however
Yeah,
many.
each person will build their own canoe, and
okay.
they'll leave with that canoe. That's the great thing about, our school, as opposed to other places where you'll build a canoe, is instead of the 3 or 4 students building one canoe for
Yeah.
a week, the 3 or 4 students will be building their canoe over 2 weeks.
Okay.
And everybody will help each other with their
Yeah.
canoes, but you're going to leave with your own canoe. As you leave with your own basket or your own knife or your own blanket, whatever you
Okay.
craft.
Well, why don't you show, as an example,
Sure.
the knife with your little storyboard there?
Sure.
Where it starts and how it ends up.
So going back to blacksmithing, we're really fortunate to have the finest blacksmiths in the country. Here's a great example. This is from Matt Parkinson, who's the first winner of Forged in Fire on History Channel. So he made this storyboard for us for his hunting knife class. They teach us twice a year. So you start off with a piece of steel like this.
I'll just say, I think people can see, but it's just a square piece.
It's just a square rectangular
Yeah.
piece. And these are the different steps. And you'll end up with a knife very similar to this one here in about 2 days. So this is a Staghorn hunting knife here, Barbara. So
that actually takes 2 days.
right. You start off learning how to swing a hammer in a
Okay.
blacksmith shop, and you'll leave with a knife like this. The antler is because it's a very dense material. It was, it's harvested off the ground, and it looks really cool.
So Barbara, what is it about, because in the past I've talked to the blacksmiths themselves, not a blacksmith student. What is the attraction to this? It's like the most about.
Well, first of all, I could go on, but just to follow up briefly on what Scott was saying about Matt and all of our other instructors, they are amazing. Not only talented, but they're so very accessible. And I think that's one of the great things about our school, is that it's a real community between the members of the board and the volunteers and the instructors and the students. It's a very family feeling community atmosphere. And I'm not too afraid to jump into too many things, but I find that the blacksmithing is kind of intimidating, and I was wondering if the blacksmiths instructors would be very stern, and they're not. Oh my gosh, they are so accessible. And even Matt was saying, I was asking whether my son could take a knife making class, because now that he's seen Forged in Fire, of course he wants to do that. And I said, what kind of experience does he need? And Matt said, 9 out of the 10 of my students have no experience. So please don't be intimidated. Come on up.
Do many women take the blacksmithing?
Absolutely. The neat thing about this year is only 2 classes of the 25 that we've offered did not have a woman in the class.
Oh, okay.
So we've had at least one woman in almost every blacksmithing class.
Excellent.
Throughout the year, and of all ages too. There's one lady who's in retirement years, and she has taken almost as many classes as Barbara. She just loves.
I think we were probably in this class together.
Yes, and she just loves forming metal.
Okay.
It's something very empowering about standing in front of a 1,000-degree coal fire and forming metal to your will with with hammer and tongs.
And I'll say, this is way in the future, but in 2020,
yes,
you guys will be hosting the worldwide, the International Blacksmithing.
Yeah, it's the North American Blacksmith Association's Artist Blacksmith Association, ABANA, biannual conference at the Washington County Fairgrounds.
So that's not till 2020.
Not till 2020, but we'll have about 1,500 to 2,000 people from all over the world will be converging for a better part of a week to our region, learning, collaborating on blacksmithing, having a good time, and experiencing our region. That's another strength of why we won the bid for this conference, is the natural beauty not only of the region but Lake Luzerne specifically, and the caliber of our instructors. Rather,
we'll talk about that in 2 years, but
deal.
But I wish we could have more of your teachers. I mean, you have. I should say, we're talking about a couple of things. You have classes. You have gardening classes. You have cooking classes, leather craft. Adirondack chair making, timber framing.
Yes.
As an example, why don't you talk a little bit about this guy? One of your teachers from Russia. He comes every other year, and he makes these. I got them all over the place. This is what kind of bark? Birch.
This is birch bark.
So this is
white birch.
Strips of birch bark, making all these kinds of things. This is what a food container?
Correct. That Vladimir Yarosh, who's from Veliki Novgorod, Russia.
And this thing, you can talk about this, but let me just show this one other thing.
Sure, that's
This
a
little
shepherd's
pouch
leather.
leather, and it's all these little strips. It's totally amazing. So he teaches there every other year, but this is just an example of the quality of your teachers and these products. I mean, why don't you talk about, because you know this guy, why don't you talk about some of these things and the art of it?
Oh, it would be my pleasure. And for anybody, Vladimir will be joining the school. As I mentioned, we're setting up the calendar for 2018 right now.
Okay.
But Vladimir will be joining us sometime in June. I'm helping him right now develop his calendar for the time he'll be spending in the Northeast. I met him at the North House Folk School in Minnesota a few years ago. This is the only birch book I could ever find online on the craft of weaving with bark. And I thought, how could I possibly get to Russia to study with this man? And lo and behold, he comes here for our convenience every other year.
Okay.
He is the equivalent of a PhD in Russia in the teaching of historic traditional craft. He focuses mainly on Russian craft, but there is some overlap with Scandinavian traditional craft as well. So when Vladimir comes to the United States, he will bring 5,000 of these strips, and he will spend a couple of months here. He'll spend hopefully at least a week or two in our area, but he teaches all over the country. Right now he's in Berlin at a show. But so each one of these strips is hand harvested from trees in right outside of his city. He says in Russia, birch grows like weeds.
Okay.
So in our area, I'm sure there's a lot of people in our area that have birch in their yard. Many of the species of our birch trees are what's called the canoe birch.
Yeah.
So they were used by
The white
Northeast
birch, yeah.
North American Indians for canoe making, and those thicker barked trees are primarily used for folded birch bark containers sewn with spruce roots. And we do offer a class on that as well. But the Russian version, or the Scandinavian version that Vladimir will be teaching, is woven with strips from a different type of birch tree. We don't have as many
Yeah.
of those trees in our area, just a some, but the bark is much, much thinner. And the bark is harvested usually in the month of June, and out in the woods. In Vladimir's book, there's numerous pictures of his process. The bark is then rolled through a pasta machine, or
Okay,
cut with a
so-
rotary quilt cutter.
But you say pasta machine works the best.
Pasta machine works the best, and really, and that's Vladimir's trick. And for all you paper artists, it works great on paper also. But the reason being, each of the strips is required to be the exact same size in order to
Get the
to be
square.
successful
Yeah.
at this particular type of weaving, which is called bias-plated weaving. There can be no holes or no room in between each of the strips. What makes these so very durable is that each one of these little pieces is woven with 4 layers of birch bark.
For
Four.
these.
Each one of these
Four of
little
these,
baskets,
okay.
all 4 of, well, probably that bundle would make this basket.
Okay.
So maybe 16 strips would be needed for this basket. But it's woven 4 times, and that adds to the strength and durability of the basket. You have to keep inserting strips over and under to add to the layers of the basket. When Vladimir teaches here, he'll wear these high boots, literally nearly knee-high boots, which
Yeah.
are very historic. And if you've heard the expression, walk a mile in my shoes, it literally comes from birch bark boots, because he can walk about a mile before he needs to add another new layer to the soles of his boots, which on a good day has 9 layers on the bottom.
God. Well, it sounds like, it sounds like one of your typical teachers.
No, we're really no. He's
No,
very
but you do
committed.
have people all over the world.
Right, we do. We have the other one of our other renowned blacksmiths is Mark Asbury, who he literally wrote the book on blacksmithing, volumes 1 through 3, and this is his. And he flies in from California. He's Welsh, but he lives in California, and you've taken his class a few times.
And he comes every year.
He comes every year, and this is like one of his marquee pieces. It's the wizard bottle opener, and the great thing about this, it looks like a wizard from Lord of the Rings.
Yeah, yeah. Okay.
And the great thing about it is, it's not just you're not just learning making the great craft, but you're learning each of the steps. So each of the major disciplines of smithing. So you start out each, using a chisel.
Again, you're just starting with it almost looks like a little bar of metal.
Right, you're just starting with a bar, and then you're heating it, and then each step, working with a chisel and then a punch, and then and that's the bottom part. And then this is the top part of where you're curling his little hat and putting the star in his eyes or in his beard, so he's looking sharp. And that's quite a conversation piece at your bar, but and that's the cool thing about our crafts. It's I know of a distinguished gentleman who has a pen that was made at our school, and it's quite like, wow, where did you get that pen? It's like, well, it was made at the Adirondack Folk School, or I made it myself. Is quite a story. So the chef knife is very similar to the hunting knife, but you're using this at a party or your home. Well, wow, that's a beautiful knife. Where did you get that? Well, I made it myself. Like, Bill, you've never made anything. But again, you start off being intimidated, like just nervous and excited to do it. And by the end of the class, you'll have crafted an heirloom quality knife or a basket from a famous Russian basket weaver. Yeah.
So it's everything. It's AdirondackFolkSchool.org. Tell me about some of the people. They don't just. Your students aren't just from New York State or Capital Region, they're from all over the country, right?
They are. We have people who fly
They plan their vacations about
They fly in, planning their vacations around our classes based on either the item or the instructor. A lot of our instructors have followings within their craft, and they can stay in the Lake George, Saratoga area, Lake Luzerne.
I should say the website, AdirondackFolkSchool.org, has places. You guys don't have dorms or anything, but your website has places where people can stay.
We have a few recommendations, yes.
Recommendations.
Or give us a call.
So what is on tap for 2018? Anything you can...
Well, we're looking to expand into music. We're trying to get a luthier to do a mountain dulcimer as one of our classes.
To make one?
To make one, yes.
Okay.
That's another extensive class. Yeah. Spoon carving has become very popular. So a lot of woodworking classes.
Well, I noticed, one thing you have some things which are sort of you have some music classes, you have some gardening stuff. They're not really craft. Are they also as popular as the crafting?
They are, yes. Yeah.
Okay.
And dry laid stone walls is quite a popular class. It's one of the few. We have a mason who comes and teaches you how to make a stone wall. It's one of the few things you can't take home with you. You build a little. You build a section of a stone wall.
Does he do the kind where it's like a square?
He's square. You dig out you start out with a base, and then you
using all different size
stones, and you chisel and you form the stones to fit in together. And that was extremely popular.
I think that would be a very, very interesting. What's that called again?
Dry laid stone.
Dry laid stone. Okay.
Stone wall.
I think what are the cooking? What are your cooking and food courses about or like?
We have a wood-fired brick oven at our school, so we'll be doing bread and pizza this coming year, and we'll actually be doing a pizza and home brewing class.
Okay. So what you'd be showing people how to use that kind of oven?
Use that kind of oven.
Okay,
yes.
that's what you're saying.
It dates back thousands of years.
Okay. And I think beer making does go back a couple thousand years.
A few millennia as well. So it's historic. Yes, that's right. It's historic, and that's one of our fun classes that we'll have that we're really excited about offering.
Again, Barbara, 2018. Are you going to be just continuing on with basket?
Yes, I'll be.
And taking blacksmithing?
Yes, I'm planning my blacksmithing. In fact, I haven't signed up for my basketry teaching classes yet because I wait for the blacksmithing calendar to come out first, and I know when I'm taking classes, and then I decide, then now I can teach around that. So yes, I'll plan my monthly classes very soon, and as well, I'm hoping to teach more at the shirt factory and perhaps be teaching.
So you'll be up there. Okay. Yes. So very good. Well, it sounds like you guys are doing really well up there. I think we've shown everything. Well, come back next year, Scott. It's AdirondackFolkSchool.org. It'll be on the screen here. Again, I don't know, over how many classes? Over 200 classes?
Over 200 classes in 20 different areas of craft.
And spend some time up there. So we'll see you next time. Barbara, thank you for coming down. And we'll see you next time on Getting to Know You.